Now that we have our points figured out and visualized, let's actually use them for a raycast to check and see if we're touching a wall. We're going to go back into our player script and we're going to do a couple real quick changes before we do that though. We're going to go to our draw gizmos for side method, and instead of passing in number of points and buffer, let's just use the fields that we already have. We'll delete both of those from the parameters and we'll replace number of points here with our point count. So just copy and paste that in here. And then we'll replace buffer with the underscore buffer. Then I can remove these as parameters and simplify things just a little bit. I'm going to rename point count to, let's call this wall check points. So control R, call this underscore wall check. And we can call it, let's call it wall check points. I don't like the word count being in there. And then the final thing we're going to do is duplicate this method. So we're going to take draw gizmos for side and we're just going to copy it. I'm going to select the whole method, duplicate with Control D, can hit enter right before the private, and let's change this one up. So instead of drawing gizmos a second time, what we're going to do is loop through, and we're just going to use a copy of the code for now. We can refactor and change it later, but we'll use a copy of the code, and instead of drawing a wire sphere, we're going to do a raycast. And then we'll return true if we hit something and false if we don't hit anything. So let's first rename this method to check for wall. And let's make it return back true or false. So replace void with a bool. And then in our gizmos, we'll do, or instead of doing our gizmos, we'll do a raycast. So we'll say if physics2D, and we'll start with a simple raycast. We'll just do a raycast at our origin, in our direction, and times our distance. Let's just go with a 0.1. So we'll just do a short distance right now. If we hit anything, then we'll return true. We're touching a wall. Otherwise, at the end of our loop, we'll return false. Whoops, that's not return false. So now we have a method that should loop through all of those same exact points, do a raycast in the direction that we've picked, and return back true or false. Let's call this method and assign a couple variables. So inside of our update, we have an update grounding. Let's add an update wall touching. Wall, let's see, I can spell this right. There we go, and we'll generate a method for it. Down in that method, we'll just add a field called, let's say, is touching right wall, and assign it to check, what do I call it? Check for wall, and we'll pass in vector2 dot right. I'm going to duplicate this and add one for is touching left wall. And here we'll check to the left. And then we're just going to generate two fields. So I'll hit Alt-Enter, generate field, go down, Alt-Enter, generate field, F12, and we'll just cut both of these. Actually, let's not even cut them. We'll just leave them there for now and make them public. I lied. I am going to cut them. We're going to move them right over by the is standing, is ducking, and all that. I want these parameters or these booleans that are telling me my state to all be in one spot. All right, we'll save, go back into Unity, and now when we run up to this wall, we should see that we are touching the wall inside of our inspector right here. Let's go check it out. So we come over here, now we're touching a left wall, and if we come over here, now we're touching a right wall. And if I jump and touch things, I should expect to see similar behavior. Is touching right wall is true, and here is touching left wall is true. So we're getting the detection right. The last thing we need to do is use this field or use these bools to stop ourselves from running into these things. Before we do that though, let's go back into Plastic and add in a commit for our working detection. Working wall detection on left and right. And we'll check that in.